Hi, this is Jen, and welcome to another episode of My Autoimmune Path. So, on my last episode, I did 5 things to help lessen the load, to lessen the burden on your body as you are struggling through this autoimmune journey, this path, right? Whether you may be dealing with a flare up or not, these are just things that help lessen the load on your body. So I'm going to do a part 2, and I've got a 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All right, so number 6 is reduce your chemical load. And this is somewhat, I guess, similar to the number 1 on the last episode about with water. So, but goodness, aren't chemicals everywhere these days? And a lot of them are just not very beneficial for us. So where you want to try to lessen the chemical load is in your cleaning products, in your laundry detergent and dishwasher detergent, even things like perfume and scented candles. We just give a personal kind of testimony or anecdote, but we order our dishwasher detergent from a company. I want to say it's in Michigan, something like that. But anyway, it's on auto delivery. It comes in like every, I don't know, maybe 6 weeks or so. And it's just, comes in these little kind of pouches, and we scoop it out, put a little bit in. It washes our dishes great. Now, there may be some more kind of natural dishwasher detergents out there that don't do such a bang up job. And I have used some of those. So it can be a little bit trial and error. But this particular one works great. They even have a like a rinse aid type product, so that it doesn't leave any kind of streaks or hazy on your glasses, your drinking glasses and whatnot. So that's been a real blessing. And I would say we've been using that brand for probably about 2 or 3 years now. I really like it. Also, our laundry detergent, and I will say that company makes a laundry detergent, but we have found a brand just at our local grocery store it's one of the store brands, and I've checked the ingredients, and they seem good. Now, if you need a reference on, you may think, oh, well, I wouldn't even begin to know what ingredients are bad or good or what to look for. And I get you. A lot of that can be really confusing and complicated. But check out the EWG, the Environmental Working Group, and their website has some places where you can go in and list a certain product and see if it's real toxic, or kind of what ingredients might be in there that are bad. And I also know that there are a lot of apps out there these days. Our daughter had told me about some apps that you can use, and you can actually use them like at the grocery store and scan the barcode of a product, and it'll tell you if it's if it passes muster, so to speak. So it's definitely not as hard as it used to be in sort of sussing all that out. Now, like perfume, goodness, I mean, everybody wants to smell good, right? And I had worn perfume for years. I think I started wearing perfume in the 7th grade, and never tried to be like totally over the top about it or have some like outrageously strong scent, but I just enjoyed smelling good. Over the years, though, it has really been harder and harder to wear perfume, and I could just tell. I can read my body because I've lived with autoimmune for 30 years. that it was a burden, and it would bother me, you know. And so you say, okay, well, what are the alternatives? Well, there aren't a ton, I'll be honest, but I have recently found a perfume that is made from essential oils and just a very few other ingredients. I think one of them is maybe a little bit of coconut oil. It comes in a little roller ball, and you just, roll it on, and they have some wonderful scents. Now, is it going to last as long as regular perfume? No, absolutely not. But it's not going to overload you, chemically. It's not going to give you kind of toxic overload. And a lot of times when you have autoimmune, we just can't clear things out as well as the next person. Like smells overwhelm us, scents and smells and just chemicals. I mean, they just overwhelm our body a lot quicker and a lot more readily than the next person. Like I said, I'm not sure exactly the science behind that, but that is a very common thing. I remember I went through a phase, I don't know, 12, 15 years ago, with scented candles. They were real trendy, and again, just like with the perfume, and who doesn't want to smell good or smell nice? Why wouldn't you want your house to smell nice? And especially around the holidays or something, you might want it to smell kind of cinnamony or like pumpkin spice or something. I don't know. Every time I would light, one of those scented candles, I know it really bothered our son, especially. He has some mild asthma, and he would start, just kind of making these sounds. And I mean, he would kind of brush it off like, oh, I'm fine. I think he was in middle school at the time, something like that. But then I finally realized, oh gosh, it's probably those scented candles is not that great for him. So we just cut all of that out together. And what I do instead now, where I made a swap, is with essential oils and an oil diffuser. And I mean, honestly, you can just get those lovely smells that way, right? You can buy cinnamon oil and clove oil, and you can do orange and lemon and all kinds of great things and blend them together. There is even I know of one company that they make some kid-friendly blends, and supposedly can help kids, like if you diffuse them, help them kind of study it, like to focus when they're studying, doing their homework, that kind of thing. Anyway, there are a few little I guess not concerns, but you want to be a little bit more careful with some essential oils, just to make sure that if you're applying them topically, maybe if you need to use a carrier oil or something like that. But goodness, I'm sure that they're much better for you than something like a scented candle. Ooh. So that is certainly in the rearview mirror as far as our family. Anyway, okay, number 7. Moving on to the next one. Number 7 is eating clean, or if we want to get grammatically correct here, eating cleanly, since that is an adverb. That's something that we hear a lot about these days as well. So goodness, so much sort of pre-prepared food and fast food out there has so many chemicals. MSG, monosodium glutamate, and even, okay, there's something that I guess can be MSG, but maybe they call it a different name. And so if you find something on the label that says yeast extract, a lot of times it's either MSG or it's something very similar to MSG. Yeast extract sounds sort of innocuous, like, oh yeah, that sounds fine, but 9 times out of 10, it's probably MSG. I I've gotten to where I just cannot tolerate that kind of stuff, and so I mean we are on a pretty strict diet anyway these days. We're eating grain free and low carb, and we don't eat out a lot, but we certainly are not running through the drive-through. I think those days are definitely over for us because, boy, it used to derail me. It would either blow up my sinuses somehow, just something in those foods. I'm not saying it was MSG, but just something in those foods, or give me headaches, or joint pain. I mean, all of that just can get kind of everywhere in your body, and especially if you've got somewhat of a leaky gut, things in your gut can end up in your bloodstream and in other places where they don't need to be. Those chemicals can get filtered around. So just try to eat as cleanly as you can, and it's not some huge mystery. You might think, well, where do I start? I mean, there's a lot of good resources out there, and apps, like I mentioned, for the products and things. And just, this has been a beneficial thing for me personally, to be a label reader. If I go to the grocery store and whatever I'm buying, if it's like a canned good or a box of something, man, I am not going to put that in my cart or my buggy unless I have looked at that label thoroughly, So pay attention, just know what you're buying, what you're putting into your body. And goodness, right? The fewer the ingredients, the better. I mean, if you buy something and it just has, water and a couple of other things in it, it's probably about the purest form you can get. Eat cleanly. All right. The next one, number 8, has been incredibly helpful for me and my husband and our family, and it's to use some good supplements. And I'm not going to necessarily name all the supplements that we take, but especially when you have an inflammatory bowel condition, we can have issues with absorption. Our gut lining may be flared and we are just not absorbing very well. So maybe sometimes we're not able to pull the nutrients out of our food that we need. And so sometimes it can be beneficial to then supplement, just to try to make sure we're getting. Now, you could argue, well, can your body absorb the supplements? I don't know. But I think at least we're adding maybe an extra layer there, where we're giving our body another chance to get what it needs. There's also, a way to get some vitamins and nutrients, and that is by getting some injections. I know there's like B12 injections that are available a lot of times for people. And then you can also go in and have an IV, like an IV bag. There's you can do like a vitamin C bag, or what they call a Myers bag, which is kind of like a mix of various things. I'm not sure what all it has in it, but if you feel like you don't want to take it in by mouth because you do have some absorption issues, then put it in a different way. Now, I know that some of those IV bags can be a little bit expensive, but I've done those at times, and they've been incredibly beneficial for me. There was one time when we were living in Texas, the heat got me, we had moved in the summertime out there, and I've talked about some of my struggles with the heat getting me in my home state in the deep south, but man, it's brutally hot in Texas as well. And you think, oh, it's a dry heat. No, it may be a little bit drier, but it's incredibly hot. And I mean, I think it would get up to temperatures of about what, maybe 105, 108. And so one time I just got to feeling really poorly not too long after we had moved out there. And there was a clinic, kind of like a doc in the box type clinic, but a locally owned one. And they did these IVs, and I went in and had something similar to a Myers bag. And boy, I'm going to tell you, it really helped me. It really perked me up. It not only hydrated me, but it just, yeah, it was a good thing. So, but, on the daily, I take things like vitamin D3. You got to decide all that for yourself. But just make sure that you're getting what you need. Okay? All right, number 9. Don't be afraid to ask for help. This is a hard one for many people. I don't think it's as hard for me, maybe. But if you're in a flare, I mean, goodness, maybe you've just been in the hospital or something. And there's friends and family who want to help, who want to do for you. Let them, right? And, I mean, don't try to just be like this Superman or this Superwoman, like, oh, I've got it, I got it. No, we're good. I mean, people want to help. They want to be generous. I remember one time, it's the only time that I've ever had to be in the hospital for a flare-up of my colitis. And it was brutal. It was just brutal. And I discussed this on the episode that I did about steroids. But some people in our church, they had heard that I had been in the hospital, and they wanted to help us in some way. And, they offered to bring us food and that type of thing. And so I certainly, said, look, I would love the help. Now, I did have to end up saying, I probably need it done maybe a little bit different way, because I was on a really, restricted diet at that point. And so instead of them just like bringing me a bunch of casseroles and stuff, they said, hey, why don't we give you a gift card to Whole Foods, and then your husband, can go and shop and buy whatever y'all need. And I thought that was a fantastic thing. So, like, even if the offer of help doesn't initially fit exactly what you need, talk to people and just share and just be honest and say, look, this means so much to me. And yes, I would love for y'all to be able to help us in some way. Could we do it this way instead, And a lot of times people are happy to do that. They just maybe want a little bit of direction, But if you need help also, just don't try to struggle alone. Reach out to friends and family and say, hey, can you pick my kid up from school if it's a trusted friend and someone who would call you to do the same. Maybe you just need them to pick your kid up for a week, from school, and drop them off if you're in a bad flare. I don't know what your particular situation might look like, but most people are genuinely happy to help. You just have to ask sometimes. Also, along with this is don't be afraid to set some boundaries. My husband and I were talking over this kind of concept, and he brought up something that I thought was a really good point, and it was even things like, for instance, asking people to use hand sanitizer, right? Like, not kind of allowing things to contaminate you or whatever. For instance, let me give you an example. When we go shop at Costco, of course, I love to go through the self-service line because I can kind of control everything and use my own hand sanitizer and whatnot. But my husband really likes to go through the regular line and have the the workers unload your cart and ring it all up. So if we do that, and usually he and I are together when we go shop at Costco, but he'll say, would you mind, like if we're buying raw meat or something, would you mind leaving the raw meat for the last? And here's why. Is that we want to avoid cross-contamination, right? There's E. coli and there's salmonella and there's all kinds of things. And if you're immunocompromised, you don't want somebody touching all that meat and then touching your bananas and your cereal and your whatever, right? Because it's going to, if there is something like that, if there is something like E. coli, it can get all over all of the rest of your groceries that you're buying. So we set boundaries like that. And a lot of times they understand, and they're cool with it. And we just say, hey, I have an autoimmune disease and I have to be careful with cross-contamination from raw, products. Also, don't be afraid to ask people to use hand sanitizer. And, I think we can all be glad that the pandemic is in the rearview mirror. But one positive about that was that people would actually wear masks when they were sick, and that they used a ton of hand sanitizer. I think we could bring a little bit of that back, right? I mean, but one time we had an electrician that had to come to our house, and it was when around the time our daughter was born, and she was born premature, and we were told when we were discharged from the hospital and we brought her home that anyone who came into our home had to wash their hands for 3 minutes up to the elbow, just like we had to do before we went in to see her in the neonatal intensive care unit. And so we would have, family members and friends do that if they came over. But one time we had this electrician, and, I wasn't going to ask him to do that. But when he came to the door, I said, hey, before you come in, we have a premature baby, and we have to be extremely careful. Would you mind using some of this hand sanitizer? And I had it right there at the ready to have him use. And he said, absolutely, not a problem. He's so happy to oblige. So it's things like that where you can advocate for yourself and set boundaries, and just, don't say, oh, well, woe is me. It'll just, I'll get contaminated, or I'll get sick, or I'll whatever. No, be proactive in that way. So don't be afraid to ask for help, or don't be afraid to set some boundaries to protect yourself. Okay. Number 10. And this is an important one. Bring faith into the mix. I'm a person of faith. goodness, I would not have gotten through all of these years without my faith in God. And I'm so thankful for it. The Lord has carried me through some really, really dark days. And look, let's not sugarcoat. I mean, it can get hard, and we can get really down and feel very hopeless. But as long as you have that relationship with the Lord, there is always hope. There is always hope. And there's always strength to be had from Him. And we know that we will have bad days. We will have some bad days. And we may have more than that. We may have bad weeks, and we may have bad months, and we may even have a bad year. And believe me, I've had one. I mean, certainly I've had times, when I was flared up for months, but I had a literal year one time of just being sick. But just keep on keeping on. Keep on doing research. Don't give up hope. Keep believing that there is going to be something that's going to help you, and that better days are ahead. All right. Well, look, I would love to hear if you have any more things to add to my list, any things that you think can lighten the load on this path. Feel free to comment and share those. And also don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. It's a joy to be able to make these videos and just to hopefully be an inspiration or an encouragement or a blessing to someone out there. Just know you are not alone. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.